So my name's Lisa Sieverts, and I teach at Harvard Extension, teach Agile project management, also do a variety of different Agile things and project management things. And it's through Harvard Extension that I met my friend here, Richard Kasperowski. Richard, what do you do? That's me. There's Richard.
Oh, we need the Lisa picture. That's Lisa. Thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome.
All right. And hi, I'm Richard Kasperowski. So I'm an author, I'm a teacher, I'm a coach. I work a lot with high-performance teams, team building. The tools I like to use are core protocols, Agile, open space. We saw a little bit of Agile into open space tonight already. I also teach a course at Harvard. It's called Agile Software Development. Lisa teaches her course at the Extension School in the spring. I teach my course at the Extension School in the fall and in the summer.
So we have a goal that we've identified for tonight. Tonight is a big learning activity, and our can-do statement for you all, our goal is that you leave tonight saying to yourself, I can design and share a new learning experience with future experts, with the people that you train.
And so we've got three big topics for tonight. First topic is called essential material. We'll be talking about, it's really sort of like the minimum viable training material that you need to do a course. Then we'll go into creating a training experience, aka creating a class, and facilitating a training experience, aka teaching. We want to start with this question. People here know something about Agile. Even if you just walked in the room and you never heard of Agile before, you know how to spell the word, you know something about Agile. People have been here since the inception of Agile New England, know a lot about Agile. Now, if you had to create a course and teach a course about Agile, what is the minimum set of topics that you would teach? Like if you had, okay, a typical course length is 2 days for an intro to Agile and Scrum. If you had 2 days to teach Agile, what's your list of most important topics? What's your essential list of Agile topics? What if you only had a day? What would be on your list of essential topics? What if you only had half a day? What if you were with a group of executives and you only had 30 minutes? What would you want to teach them? What is your most essential Agile topic? And maybe you brought your audience participation device with you. It looks like a mobile phone. Did you bring your device, your participation device? All right. On the tables, you'll see extra instructions for the audience participation devices. The guest Wi-Fi, if you need it, is EIGI-guest. There's a password for it. Connect your audience participation devices to the audience participation Wi-Fi network if needed. When you've done that, aim your participation device at menti.com. It's on the screen here, MENTI.com. And type in the code 866419. And when you get there, type in your most essential Agile topic. If you could only teach one topic about Agile to a group of new people, what would your one topic be? And I'm not just staring off into space, there's a screen right there. So I'm watching. So there's a lot going on there. This is sort of like a histogram. The words that are bigger, that means people did it more than once. Different people typed in those words. So a lot of people think fun is really important. Oh, chocolate has got multiple votes. The mindset of Agile, currently the top vote getter. The Agile Manifesto itself, flexibility, the word Agile, transparency, the Agile Manifesto, new winner. So there's a lot of varying opinion about what is the one most essential topic related to Agile.
So you'll want to keep thinking about your essential topic. We'll come back to that later. But one of the things we want to keep in mind is that, even in a semester-long course, it's actually not that much time that we have available to us. It's 30 to 35 hours. It's not much more than a several-day training class. And so we've made certain choices about what we're doing. So these are our classes. I teach this Agile, it's called Agile Project Management. It's really a product owner class. And these are the items that I have decided are essential materials. Our classes are almost 5.5 months long, start in January and end in May. But we really have to limit what we cover, because if you cover too much, people are overwhelmed. So this idea of the essential material, making sure it's just enough that people can really take it in and learn it.
Yeah, and that's the important thing there, actually learn it. Not just the amount of stuff that I want to teach, or the amount of stuff that Lisa wants to teach, the amount of stuff that we think people need to know, the amount of stuff that they can actually learn in a short amount of time. So we have similar, this is the list of topics in my semester-long class. Mine is aimed at technical skills as well. So there are some things we think everybody needs to know, no matter who you are, and we have some common topics there. And there are some things that I'm missing that Lisa has, and some things that I have that Lisa doesn't have on her list. Ethics. Who knew? Who knew that was an important topic?
And we've had just enough conversation to try to ensure that someone could take both of our classes without experiencing too much redundancy. But they also need to stand alone. But yes, so you might have done other made other choices about what's the essential material. So what we would like you to do, are we at the pairing up part? Yeah. So what we want you to do is pair up with the person next to you. You each had an essential topic that you put into the Mentimeter, and now just talking to your neighbor, pick one. What's going to be your essential topic?
So form groups of 2. Get a friend, make a friend, form a group, introduce yourselves. Groups of 2. Compare your personal most important, most essential topics and pick the one essential topic that the 2 of you agree on. You'll have 2 minutes. I giggle every time that happens in this room. We're all so well trained, thanks. Now, before we debrief on that, we're going to move on to the next micro segment in micro activity. So the next micro segment is a topic called can-do statements. Now, my wife, Molly, is a teacher. She teaches Spanish at Boston University. She's also a lifelong learner. And she and I both like to learn about effective pedagogy, effective teaching, effective learning. She went to a pedagogy class and learned about this thing called can-do statements. The idea of a can-do statement is it's a way to aim your learners or aim your learning module, aim your course that you're creating. What do you want your learners to be able to say they can do by the end of the little learning segment or the whole semester-long course. For example, in Agile, this is an example of a can-do statement, I can write a useful and usable user story. Or I can facilitate an excellent sprint planning session. These are sort of like acceptance criteria on your learning segment, your learning module, your course. And we do it in first person because this is your learner saying it. I can blank. That's a can-do statement. With your partner in your group, the two of you just picked one essential topic, right? All right. So with your partner, we're going to get into that. Here's some examples from my course. I actually poll the students at the beginning of the semester, halfway through, and at the end. And I think it's interesting to look at the results. At the beginning of the semester, they guide me a little bit on what topics we need to go into and at what depth. Halfway through the semester, they guide me on have we been doing an adequate job in what we've covered, and by the end, did we get everything we wanted? And so I look at the data, and I'm usually happy about this. By the end, there's nobody saying, I can't do that. Everybody's saying, I can. So back to your partner. With your single most important Agile topic, create 3 can-do statements together. What are 3 things you would want a learner to be able to say they can do related to that one essential topic? We'll let you do this for about 2 minutes. Any questions about the activity? All right, go.
Great. So let's do a little sharing of what things we came up with for those can-do statements. So one team, I'd like to hear from 3 different pairs. So who'd like to go first? Who'd like to share one of their can-do statements? Okay, so tell us, what was your essential topic?
Mindset.
Mindset. And what was one can-do?
I can organize a project.
Oh, that's a big one. Okay.
Mindset and I can organize a project.
Mindset was the idea, and I can organize a project was the
Okay. Who's another team? Yep, over here. So tell us, what was your essential topic?
Responding to change.
So essential topic, respond to change. And what was your can do?
I can respond to changing customer needs.
Okay.
Repeat, please.
The mindset was, or the essential topic was respond to change. And the can do is I can respond to changing customer needs. Okay. And another one. Back here, David.
Our topic was mindset,
Okay.
and our can-do was I can define an MVP.
So the topic is mindset. The can-do is I can define an MVP.
Great. So some of these are a little big and broad. You know, just like with our Agile projects, we often want to be as tangible as we can. But these are still good. These start to give us a place to go. Okay.
All right, so we're going to move on from essential material. Now that we have some essential material, we have an essential topic, we've got some can-do statements. How do we create the training experience given those 2 inputs? I'm going to ask you to participate again. Have you ever done this before? Yeah. Have you ever created any sort of class or learning segment, even if it was really short, even in middle school? Pull out your audience participation device again, the one that looks like a mobile phone. Where would you rank yourself? How would you self-report your experience at creating a lesson, ranging from I've never done it to it's my full-time job. This is the only thing I do all day, every day. It's menti.com, and the code is 866419.
At menti.com.
And so, it looks like there are some people here who have never done this before. There's approximately one person who does this full-time all the time. And most of us are about in the middle. We've done a little bit of this, but we don't do it every day. So, I think this section will be interesting.
We're going to be teaching you a method. It's not to say this is the only method for organizing a learning activity, but we are, both of us, we discovered independently, very fond of, partial to, and use ourselves material by Sharon Bowman, who's written a number of great training books. Probably the most well-known is this one, Training from the Back of the Room. And she really embodies the philosophy that for us as teachers, it's not so much about us teaching, it's about learners learning. And how do we create an environment where our learners really learn the material? So she uses four C's we like to talk about: connection, content, concrete practice, and conclusion. And we're going to walk you through, step by step, designing those 4 pieces for your essential material that you identified first. Okay? And so we have given you some handouts. Now those mysterious pieces of paper will start to become more clear. And you'll see there's 4 quadrants on the sheet of paper. One side is blank. That's the side you'll be using for your activity. And the other side is filled in to show you what a filled in planning document would look like. So there's the filled in one. So you've a section for connection, a section for concrete practice, a section for content, a section for conclusion. And notice one of the things I like about this template is the reminders along the bottom to use multiple formats. Read, write, draw, move. Move, it turns out, is very important. We learn best when we have a chance to move around. So you'll be mostly using the blank side, but if you have trouble and you're not quite sure what to do, you can always flip it over and see what the example did in that section. So we'll be walking through it one by one. And you're going to tell us about connection.
So Lisa and I rehearsed this just enough that she knows who is doing which slides. And I'm happy for the prompts. So the first C of the 4 C's is the word connection. This is about connecting learners to what they already know, activating any knowledge they already have about a topic. Engaging them. It turns out that when they realize, well, when you, as learners here tonight, when we realize, because I'm a learner too, when we realize we already know even a little bit about something, it makes us feel safer. It opens us up. It activates us to more learning. It alleviates any fear that we might have about this potentially new scary topic. I've heard Agile can be a new scary topic. We usually do these with some sort of activity. Here are some examples of activities related to Agile connection. If we're doing something about the roles in Scrum, we might have a prompt like, write down every fact you know about the role Scrum Master. And people will do that. They'll write down something, even if it's just, I know how to spell Scrum Master. Everybody knows at least one thing about it. It could be line up by experience level. Take all the learners in the room and ask them to self-organize and line themselves up in one dimension, and the endpoints could be something like, I just learned how to spell Scrum today. I wrote the Scrum guide. Put yourselves in the right place in between those two extremes. And then people in the room learn more about each other, and they get a feel for where they are at their current learning level. Or here's an example of a connection activity. What do you think is the most essential Agile topic?
Whoa, that sounds really familiar. Huh.
Yeah, that is familiar. How about that? Okay. Oh, you have a template here in which for your single most essential Agile topic, you might write down, you might create and invent some sort of connection activity about that topic. For the user story example that we have preset, it might look like this, a pop-up with the question, what is a user story? The pop-up is this facilitation technique. It's really just act like popcorn. If you have something to say, you pop up and you say and whatever it is you wanted to add about user stories. Right? We've got lots of different ways to do this. You've seen some electronic ones. Gauge yourself from here to there. That was an electronic lineup. With your partner in your group of two, for your essential topic, write down your connection activity that you might use to connect learners to that essential topic. Work together in your group of two, actually write it down on the template. We'll do it for about 3 minutes. You have any questions about the activity?
So if you can go back one slide, because for our friends in the Zoom room, you can do this with the folks in Zoom with you. So you can go ahead and have a conversation. You can see the template on the screen, and so just have a talk with each other about what the user story would be. So I'd like to bug this side over here. Do you guys, who has a connection activity that they would like to share? And do we have the mics around? Okay. Speak loudly.
Yeah, well, we wanted to come up with the basic things of the manifesto, the 4 values. And you have both sides. So we would divide the sentences so you'd have a piece of this one, a piece of that one. And you'd have all the pieces on the board, and then they would have an activity. Rather than trying to memorize it up front, they take the phrases of working software over tools and
comprehensive documentation.
But the idea is that they put the phrases together, so it would be a simple little thing for memorization. And they wouldn't have to comprehend it all at once, but they would have to put it in order, and then they'd give them chances and stuff, and then they'd assemble it, and eventually they'd get the idea by playing with it.
What's interesting about that one is that it's almost more of a concrete practice. Like if we taught a module on the Agile Manifesto, then that would be a really neat concrete practice activity. So you're jumping the gun just a little bit.
Well, people are intimidated by learning too much at once.
See, we haven't taught anything at this point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But this is a great example because this is all of our temptation. We always want to jump straight to the material. And it turns out that it's good to do a little introduction first. Yeah, so Nancy, what do you got?
We suggested that people in small groups could tell a story to one another about how they were able to increase their speed in some activity without losing any quality.
Okay, yeah. So a knowledgeable group. Yep. Neat. Who's else? Connection activity. Brian.
I'll bookend that one because Nancy and I have worked together on a number of projects. I focus on the regulated industry, specifically the FDA regulated related industry.
So,
The
yeah,
topic that we wrote down was quality and discipline in that field.
Okay.
All right. So I'm suggesting that to start off, and very, very often, a group may have developers in it that aren't even used to that industry.
Mm-hmm.
Start off by saying, well, what does the regulatory body actually require you to do as developers? And then it could be something that, you know, they fill in a word in that electronic thing or whatever it be. But what do they really want? Because a bunch of them will come up blank. But that's okay. It's a starting point.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing about this connection activity. It's just a starting point. You haven't taught anything at this point. You have people who are newly in the room, and you just need something. I mean, think of an icebreaker. The difference between a connection activity and an icebreaker is that you want the connection activity to be tied to the material in some way. It's still pretty light, but you want it to be tied to the material. Bring the people together and tie it to the material. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I actually have to teach Agile to people who are not at all familiar with software and not at all familiar with Agile. So both Mary and myself do that. And so what we've been doing is using like the easiest, most common use cases, which is Amazon, Lyft, or Uber, and having them walk through what they themselves would do, then writing it on the board. And then that life cycle of putting stuff in your shopping cart, everybody can relate to.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you just set up a very simple real-world situation. I know Jeff Patton uses the example of when he's training on story mapping, the first thing he does is, well, what's your map for getting out of the house in the morning? Because everybody has to get out of the house in the morning. And so it's something everyone can relate to. Okay, so let's move on to content. This is the part that you always want to start with, and you should never start with this. In fact, sometimes we'll want to flip concrete practice and content. Maybe we'll do a little practice first so that people know what they don't know, and then deliver some content. So this is the piece that people think of as teaching. And I want to get across that this is just a small part of the actual learning experience. But it is the first half of getting to can do. So this can be a short explanation, a short lecture, a short presentation. What's the theme here? Short. Humans have short attention spans. Okay? It could be a screencast, it could be a video, a demonstration, asking them to do a reading, or this section of tonight's talk. This is the content part. We have another example of content.
An example of content. Let's make believe your essential topic was baritone ukulele. You might have, because why wouldn't it be, right? And your content piece might be just some outline like, this is a baritone ukulele. This is content about baritone ukulele. It's made of wood. It has 4 strings. If you put your finger there and unwrap the strap, if you put your finger there and pluck all 4 strings, it makes a nice sound. Now you all know something about baritone ukulele.
That was a great lecture. Notice how and notice how short it was. So you will next have an opportunity to design the content part for your piece. And so we have an example here. Basically, when you're done with this exercise, you'll have the first 2 quadrants completed. Notice that for them, she designed an 8-minute presentation. That's right at the outer edge of too long. Okay? So in your teams, talking to each other, thinking of your essential topic, design the content piece for your topic. What are you going to do? Write it down on the template. And you have 3 minutes.
All right. I want to hear from a couple of teams of two. What did you come up with for your content? The content, again, is the material you want to share with the learners, maybe the definition of what the thing is and the how you would do it. So what did you come up with for content?
A quick question. Did anybody find concrete practice hard? And just it might be a sign that you bit off too big a topic, you know, because if this is where the rubber meets the road of like, okay, how are they actually going to do that thing in order to embody it? But just we'll do one or two examples. Who has an example of a concrete practice? Over here? Right, don't go too far. Oh.
Thank you. Well, our topic is inspect and adapt.
Okay.
And we thought we could build a little sort of a simulation game where we took something everybody could do, like designing maybe like an order entry screen in a restaurant. And then you start with a short list of requirements. The group sort of mocks up what the screen would look like. Then you have somebody role play being a user and saying, oh, that's not really what I meant. It also has to have X. Mm-hmm. And then they would have to figure out what to do. And then you would bring in another piece of information. You know, I think this requirement we had at the beginning is just wrong. Another look at it, we need to do it a different way. And the goal would be that they would have maybe a few iterations, they would react, and they would see that what they ended up with was far better than what they would have had if they just worked from an initial set of specs. So
right.
Makes it concrete that the inspect and adapt results in a better.
That hands-on piece. And I think what you'll start to see is that it's really like designing a little game. And so you often want to iterate on this. This is my 4th year teaching the same class. I am still changing my concrete practices to get them to the point where they really are working with the students. And there's nothing quite like doing it. So we're going to move on, in the interest of time, to the 4th part, which is our area of conclusion. And this is where we're really trying to help people to integrate the learning. And so it's our debrief section. And usually I find it's hard to really plan exactly how that's going to go. I have some very standard questions. What's your most important takeaway from this? What were your insights? Did anything surprise you? How did it feel as you were doing this activity? Turns out that feeling thing is actually important, and we want to check in with it. And so you want us to try conclusion? We'll do it real quick. So take 2 minutes on your essential topic and think about what might be the question you would ask or the thinking that you would want your students to do, or the reflection, the guided reflection that you would want them to do to try to integrate the learning that they just did. Okay? Yes?
So the conclusion is interactive, it's not a summary by you?
It's definitely not, well, it shouldn't be just a summary by me. Ideally, it's a summary from your participants in some way so that you know what they took away from it. You know what they learned.
And from my own experience, I used to tell people, I used to do this conclusion part and tell people, these are the key takeaways, right? And then I learned the key takeaways are even better when I ask the group, what's your personal key takeaway? And everybody shares. It's so much richer, and it's way better than when I used to tell them the key takeaways. So that could be your default answer for this part of the activity. One more question?
Well, follow-up, that's not defined that way in the 4 C's, am I correct? You two have deviated from that book that you referenced?
That's quite possible.
We've inspected and adapted on what works best for us. And serious, without that being a cop-out, we've been teaching a lot, and we've found that this sort of conclusion seems to work really well for our learners.
Right. So the book says an opportunity for participants to evaluate what they've learned about the topic. And we like to do it in that interactive way.
Your turn. 2 minutes with your partner. What would be your conclusion? How would you conclude your learning topic? Go ahead. What did you come up with as a way to conclude your learning segment? What do you have?
So we were drilling down in a pretty concrete situation, and we're at a concrete level of if you're working at team level. And what we're doing is the main topic is acceptance criteria. So when we're doing the concrete practice, we put up a user story, our user story, and say, write acceptance criteria for it. Determine what would be necessary to be accepted or to fail. So this is a team, it's a company, it's got a job to do, it's got an MVP to deliver. So they're starting the next sprint, and we're asking them what are their user stories, write a set of acceptance criteria for the next sprint.
All right, basically, how would you apply this to your real everyday work? Yeah. And let's go do that. Yeah, thank you.
Great. So you have now just experienced the design of a learning activity. You've done all 4 of the C's. And so we're going to move on to just talking for a couple of minutes about how do you then deliver that training activity. Okay?
And to get started, we're going to do something that might seem like some sort of connection activity. Think back to the best training you've ever been to. It might be tonight. It might be some other experience you've had in your life. Ooh, life.
What were the qualities of the best training you've ever experienced?
So we've got some ideas here, like it was interactive, the best training.
You know, Richard, this is shocking to me. I am just not seeing 6 hours of PowerPoint being read to me.
Yeah, PowerPoint.
Isn't that the best training you've ever had?
Yeah, I don't see PowerPoint up there. Fascinating.
Yeah. So yeah.
I'm surprised.
PowerPoint converter.
Right.
Cool. So it was interactive. It was hands-on. You actually got to do the stuff. You found it very engaging. It was invigorating. It was illuminating. These are the characteristics of good training experiences. And this is what you want to have happen as you're creating that experience for your learners. I'm hesitating to say things like delivering the training, but creating that experience for your users. Is this me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So facilitating a training experience, that's what this segment is about. This is what many people think of when they say the word teach, right? I'm going to teach a course. I'm going to teach a class. I'm going to teach something to somebody. Without sounding corny about it, I always characterize myself as a learning facilitator when I'm in a classroom. My job is to facilitate the learning, and I'm there to learn too. I always learn something from my students. Most of my students know more about continuous delivery than I do when I'm teaching that part of the course, and I learn stuff from them, and it's awesome. There's a lot that goes into facilitating for engagement, and what engagement generally means, so back to my wife Molly and stuff she's learned about pedagogy. There's a researcher at Boston University who video records classrooms. And they have a team of students who go through the video recording like every 10 seconds, and they put a code on it to describe what they noticed. And basically what they're coding was the teacher lecturing or were the students doing something else? And basically they measure engagement by all the minutes that the students were doing something is engagement. All the minutes where the lecturer was lecturing is not engagement. So we're looking for ways to facilitate that engagement. You do this a little bit with the content and the way you define the content. And of course, concrete practice is a way to get that engagement. And it goes beyond that to things like the room layout. Do you want to have a 2 lecturers on a stage kind of room layout like this? Or do you want to have something like where people are sitting together in small groups and that's just how it is? Are you going to do slides? Or are you going to do something more dynamic like a whiteboard or flip charts? Is it going to be more activity or more lecture? Are people going to be able to touch things? It turns out that people love touching things. It's one of the ways we learn. Are we going to be sitting down? Or are we going to be standing up and moving around? Are we going to have sugar in our brains and the ability to actually learn things or not? Here's, when I teach private courses in industry, I just send them this drawing. This is how I want my typical classroom set up. Sometimes, once in a while, I have something I want to show on a screen. So I want that. I definitely want flip charts, and I bring my markers with me, and I want people sitting together in small groups at actually round tables, not rectangular tables. Because I don't want anything in the way of people interacting with each other. Even the corner of the tables get in the way of people interacting. So, you gonna do this part?
Right, yeah. Now it's your turn to actually facilitate your training, and you have 75 minutes to, oh, no, that was you and me. That was us. So we have just, for you, delivered a 75-minute training, and we used the 4 C's throughout. If you think back to how we started and the various things we had you do, our outline it's got a little meta because we had 4 C's and then we had 4 C's, and for each of the C's we had 4 C's. But you have experienced the facilitation of those training activities. And I want to say one more thing. It feels very different as a teacher when you move into this model. So if you're used to being the sage on a stage, it's really different. You spend a lot of your time in the background because the bulk of your class is your participants doing stuff. And you check in on them. You make sure they're going in the right direction. But they're doing most of the work.
Yeah. And that 4C stuff is a template. It's not a requirement. For example, we're not doing a concrete practice on this element of the talk tonight. However, we do really want you to do concrete practice on facilitating a learning experience. So you have an outline in front of you for a topic that you think is important. Go to the group of people you care about, maybe tomorrow, and facilitate this training experience with them. Help them acquire the knowledge of this thing that you think is really important.
And then ask for feedback, because we're agile and we know that iterating is the right way to do just about everything. So you get feedback, you modify your training, you do it again.
All right. Oh, but wait. Oh, that was good, huh? Okay. Oh, encore, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a question for you. How will you use this content that we looked at in practice tonight in your everyday work? What will you do now that you've experienced some of this material? Get out your audience interaction device again. We've got some preset options, and one of those preset options is something else. If you don't like those preset options, if you do choose something else, come tell us what the something else was afterward. We want to hear about it. But what do you think you could take away from tonight? What could you apply to your work soon, tomorrow?
So by the way, this is a conclusion activity. We're trying to help you to integrate what you've learned.
And what are people saying? They're saying they could practice this with a group of learners. They could incorporate the 4 C's into the work they do.
We got a lot of all of these, too.
You could do all of this stuff. Improve an existing learning experience, create a new learning experience, something else. Come tell us what your something else is afterward.
Great. So this was our goal. You feel, who feels like they could design and share a new learning experience with future experts? Thank you, thank you.
That's a good magic
Yeah.
trick.
Yeah.
Now you make clap.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so of course we want to invite you to join us in our courses at Harvard. Lisa's is Agile Project Management, mine is Agile Software Development. You can find them in the course catalogs. Mine is fall, Lisa's is spring, and then mine is summer. My summer one is starting up soon.
And we would love to help you design workshops. We have thought a lot about curriculum development, and if you have a use case where you think a thinking buddy, an expert would help you out, let us know. And for me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, please. And if you are looking for Agile coaching help or any kind of project challenges, I do straddle that funny boundary between Agile and Waterfall. And I've thought a lot about when you should use which tool, which method. So I'd love to chat about things like that.
And stay connected with me as well. Stay connected with both of us. You can visit my website, subscribe to my newsletter. You can check out upcoming classes and events that we're doing. So locally, we've got one-day classes. It's the Team Building Masterclass coming up in both Hartford and Boston, and the summer edition of the Agile Software Development at Harvard. Oh, one more piece of audience participation before we hand it off to Sham.
No, would you be willing to take some questions?
Oh, of course. Of course, some questions. Before questions, we want your feedback, actually. Anytime we do anything, we ask people for feedback. This is one way to get feedback. We play perfection game on what we did tonight. So back to your audience participation device. It's really just this. It's give this session tonight a score from 1 to 10, where 10 is good. Tell us what you liked about it so we can do more of that kind of thing. And tell us what else it would take for this session to be a perfect 10. And we'll take all that feedback, and the next time we do it, it will be better.
Because we're Agile. We iterate. And we can take questions while you're doing that, if anybody has one. Yeah.
How do you apply the 4 C's for remote training?
We do that all the time. Our classes, we both teach online. And so my basic format is in Zoom, using breakout rooms, and using Google Docs as a way to help people to collaborate together. So that's the basic. But I would say every single webinar that I do has at least 2 different concrete practice activities in small groups online, and it works great.
Yeah. And go back to the can-do statements. What do you want people to be able to say they can do at the end? Okay, a lot of the activities we know about are face-to-face games. I remember you were asking about this, David, a couple weeks ago. I've got a face-to-face activity that has a really important learning point. How do I do this online? And we have these questions all the time. It's really just go back to those can-do statements and tune that activity differently or invent a new activity that still delivers on those can-dos.
And it takes creativity. This is This is a new, I still feel like this is new territory and we're figuring things out. But I've had a ton of fun as well as great outcomes in online spaces.
Other questions?
So this was more about your classes, I guess. I saw when in the list you're covering Agile software development and project management, but you're only covering Scrum. Do you cover things like the other aspects, Kanban, scaling, and things like that?
Yeah, so in my course, I've made the decision that out of the essential topics, and we have limited time, we picked Scrum as the primary framework to work people through. I actually do my syllabus as a product backlog, and I have Kanban on my product backlog. And if we have time for it, we get to it. But it's not the most important thing way at the top.
And the other piece is that Scrum is a great teaching tool. It's like all the concepts are there. And so if you go through Scrum, you get to talk about everything. We do say it's not the only way to go. In fact, in the beginning, I say exactly that. The reason why I'm using Scrum is because it's a great teaching tool.
Oh, and I didn't put the letters XP on my syllabus, but you saw things like pair programming, TDD, yeah.
So all the speakers will be there, and you can kind of reach out. I just want to let you know that we have a very interesting raffle. We have about 6 very interesting things to raffle off. So stand by if you will.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Great. Thank you.